I fucked up, and this almost costed me my business. Today, I want to bring you alongside on my journey and the challenges I face as a young founder running a startup, and to help you avoid making the same mistakes. It was the start of 2025 and we had big plans, bold targets. We broke them down for the whole year, for Q1, for January. And to be honest, I felt confident. It felt like momentum was on our side. We had just wrapped up an amazing 2024 and I felt confident. But now, fast forward to May 2025, we're only at 55% of our targets. That's not just a dip or a slow start. That's nearly half off. And it was not just the numbers, it was also the energy. The team felt it, I felt it, something has shifted. Now, I've been doing this for some time now and I know the instinct. You want to blame the market, maybe blame the timing, the technology, and maybe even the team. We thought that the whole political situation with China and the US played a role. But in the past year, I trained myself to look inwards first. Because as a leader from a young running startup, it usually starts with you as a leader or how you failed to as a leader. So I ask myself the questions, were we too ambitious or did we just simply underperform? And I think the truth is, it's both. This is the real story, how I fucked up, what I've learned from it, and how it strangely may be the best thing that ever happened to me since the beginning of Icarus Agency. Before I unpack the breakdown, let me first share with you what we have been building at Icarus Agency for the last few years. We run a performance-driven agency where we help e-commerce brands scale with the power of Google Ads. If our clients don't grow, we don't grow. It's quite simple. In the last few years, we have partnered with over 100 e-commerce brands and we scaled our monthly ad spend to over 7 figures and in the meantime generated more than 70 million euros in revenue for our clients during this period. We crossed 7 figures in yearly revenue ourselves. We built a remote team and more importantly, we didn't just scale performance, we also scaled people. At Icarus Agency, our culture is a central core of the company and we are aiming to set an example for companies yet to come. In 2024, we shared wins together, we grew together and we pushed each other to the next level. So in 2025, we naturally said, let's go bigger. In terms of revenue, team bonuses, learning goals, we had everything mapped out. But momentum is a tricky thing because when it stops, it doesn't just pause, like it completely knocks you off. So especially as a young founder, running business at scale for the first time, doubts go through your mind. Like not growing is one thing, but what if we get on a decline? Will I still be able to pay the team? And that's actually where this story really starts. So January and February were expected, but then March, April, and now May came. And we didn't have the growth that we expected. And there was no real clear reason why this was happening. We weren't just slow, we were drifting. Did we fail as leaders? For the first time in a long time, I couldn't really feel the business. It used to be intuitive, but now it was kind of foggy. So again, I ask, were we too unrealistic or did we just simply underperform? The answer was quite uncomfortable. It was both. We set high goals and maybe these goals were actually too high, but we also underperformed. And I don't want to blame the team because the lack of performance was rooted in one thing: lack in clarity. A lot of things were messy in the company. Finance was messy, the expectations were all over the place. We had optimism, but not real grip. We had to throw our finance team out and get a new one on board. And that was the moment we said, we need to make a change. But how do you make a change? Because as a founder, you're so invested in the company, like energy-wise, your mind, you're completely immersed into it. So normally you have the tendency to force this change. I used to do this with my personal life as well. So it's completely wired in how I act and how I am and how I speak. And especially when stress is building up. But luckily, I have some good coaches that are helping me around this case. They said, change is not forced. Change is inspired. And how do you create this change? And how do you inspire the team? By communication and clarity. And that's when I realized what to do. We need to make a change. Change by inspiration. Change during the quarterly planning in Lisbon. Here we are in Lisbon for the second quarterly planning of Icarus Agency 2025.
Okay.
These are really the moments where I feel like your leadership is put to the test. The upcoming week, we need to make a change. And to make this happen, we have a couple of things on the agenda. But before we kick off this quarterly planning, we start this trip with some bonding activities. So far, so good. So this quarterly planning is all about a healthy performance culture. Now, the first real day of this week. This is the day where we start with setting the intention for the week. We're gonna reflect on the first months of this year, the wins, the losses that we had, but also the confession from me as a leader about the mistakes we made and the lack of clarity. Today was the first real day of the quarterly planning. It's something we've been planning on for weeks because we had a realization in this quarter, in the beginning of Q2, we have been stagnating in our revenue and our profit margins has been going down actually. But from there on, it's time to look forward.
In the afternoon, we're going to have a collective brainstorm on how we can innovate in our Google Ads strategies or what new growth hacks and experiments we can run for this upcoming quarter.
On the second day, we collectively come together to map out the OKRs for this upcoming quarter. OKR stands for Objective Key Results. This is a goal setting method that we use in Icarus Agency to make everybody contribute to the higher goal of Icarus Agency. Just making everybody a part of the effort. But collective team spirit not only comes from setting these goals and working together, it also comes from bonding. So at Icarus, we always like to implement an element of competition. This afternoon, we are having a nice paintball session. And in this quarterly planning, in the meantime, we share knowledge within the team. We do this with the purpose to elevate each other, to become better, and to share our personal insights about everything that we learned in the past months. To discuss, to debate, and to challenge. To challenge each other on our knowledge, to making sure that we are not stuck in old knowledge or old wisdom. We wrap this week up with Project Rewind, a moment where we share feedback to everybody in the team. Their behaviors, their actions get reflected by every team member individually and then shared in the team so we can learn collectively about each individual. What are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, and what are they going to work on in this upcoming quarter. And the moment we got back from Lisbon, things didn't magically change overnight. But the energy was really different. We created more clarity, we created more peace, and the most important thing, everybody knew what was happening and what was expected from them in the future. Like one of the simple things like creating an organogram was really a key to creating this more clarity in the company. Because as a startup, you're like, hey, everybody can do everything, but that's not where real growth is coming from. It increased our ownership, and eventually we knew how to measure success within the company. We knew when somebody was doing successful, having success, but also when they were having a failure. And this eventually really increased the ownership and the responsibility within the team. And the performance culture playbook became a compass in the company on how to behave and what were the standards within the company. Besides that, we had a beautiful Project Rewind where we had a moment of direct feedback to each other, which created a personal development compass for each individual to grow themselves to the next level based on the experience and the feedback that they saw from their behavior. And regarding finance, we made some really hard decisions that we already needed to take for a while. We got ourselves a new professional in who had been working at Deloitte in London and Ernst & Young back in San Francisco. And this guy created so much mental peace for me as a founder. He created the best insights, a lot of structure in finance, no more creative spreadsheets. And then actually became the hardest part because we had made some promises back in December 2024 on growth, also in terms of salary. And we really needed to have some hard conversations. We needed to pause some of the pay raises that we promised, and we really needed to have these hard conversations to tell them like we need to pause, we need to move this a bit forward. But eventually, we as a company need to aim for long-term stability instead of short-term comfort, because it's easy, it's comfortable to not have these conversations, but you choose for long-term growth, you choose for a long-term vision with the company. And some members, of course, understood and some didn't. But as a company, as a founder, you need to choose for long-term stability instead of short-term comfort. Looking back at the first chapter of 2025, I think it was one of the most uncomfortable periods that I've experienced as a founder. We missed our goals, I had to make hard calls, and I really felt the pressure of this period. I had to face my blind spots head on. But growth, it doesn't always come from the metrics. I think it comes from these uncomfortable situations, from these moments of discomfort. I want to share with you 5 lessons that I learned as a founder during this period that I want to share with you that maybe you can take away, bring home with you. So one of the first lessons for me is realign before you act. When you're off target, you need to take a moment to breathe, to zoom out and to look at the broader perspective. But as a founder, you need to be the one that's staying calm, that can have this bird's eye perspective and to see the broader picture of what is happening. The second lesson is finance is peace. When your numbers are clear, your mind is calm. No more guessing, no more drama. Getting a good finance professional on board is really, really important. And as a founder, it's not always easy to detach your emotions from money. And I think that's one of the most important jobs of a finance professional on board on your team. The third lesson that I take away from this period is that a culture is about clarity. It is knowing what is expected from you. It's the interaction between you as a founder and the team, but also how does the team interact with themselves? Because down the line, that's eventually what establishes culture. And lead as an example is an important fundament to me here. And the fourth big lesson that I take away from this period is that you don't force change, you inspire it. As a founder, you're 100% invested in your business. So you have a lot of force and energy behind it. I had the tendency to use this energy to force the change or to make things happen. And in my personal life, this works great. But within a company, when you're working with people, this is not really possible. And luckily, my mentors and my coaches helped me with this because for me, I had the tendency to force. The fifth lesson that I take away from this period is that leadership is in discomfort. The hard talks, the real losses, the sleepless nights, that's when you become more aware of the improvements that you need to make and the next level that you need to approach. And this shapes you. I think the most growth came from the moments when I was sitting in discomfort. These are really the moments that your leadership, your personality all gets elevated to the next level. Your decision-making skills get sharper, your problem-solving abilities increase, and eventually you get way more confident to handle different kinds of situations. You are leveling up as a character in your own game.